right. Thanks for tuning in. And this is the Axis Bank numbers. We have the numbers flashing on your screen now for a while. I think the NII may be marginally off than what the expectations were. The expectations are about 5,965 crores, up about 15.45%. That's the Bloomberg poll. I think numbers have come in slightly lower at 5,844 crores. So 13% growth. Well, not too disappointing, but yeah, maybe the street was wanting more. Some other numbers have flashed. The net NPAs, the gross NPAs are largely seen in line. I'm just interested in the slippages numbers because that is something that we are all watching for, and we'll get the analyst Siddharth Purohit, an expert who tracks this very, very closely. Net profit at about 1,370 crores. That too, compared to what the estimates were, a bit lower. Remember, lower bases out there. Other income is slightly higher, and so on and so forth. So those are the few key numbers. Slippages numbers. Net slippages at about 2,621 crores versus 636 crores. Let's get in Siddharth Purohit of SMC Equities. He joins us right now on the show to talk about these numbers. Siddharth, thanks so much for taking the time out. This is Neeraj here. Good afternoon. What do you make of these numbers?
Yeah, hi Neeraj. In fact, on the premise, the number looks a little disappointing, particularly on the slippages number. I think on a sequential basis, I was expecting that probably it should have come down, but it has gone up. And the provision numbers is something, it's little on a very higher side, I would say. When a lot of other banks are kind of, reporting little lower provisions, certainly Axis Bank also should have been in that line. But provision numbers are on a very higher side, and that is probably one of the reasons why PAT has missed our estimate. So a bit disappointing, I would say, this number overall.
Working with a number of about 2,400, 2,500 crores, Siddharth, on the slippages front, and a quarter-on-quarter tapering down, which has not happened?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because probably given that the watch list number had started dwindling, then normally the slippages should have come down. And look at the absolute provision number. That means on the slippages also they have taken higher provisions, which might indicate that probably those are not very recoverable assets also. So we need to understand more why provisions are so high, definitely from the management. But prima facie, probably the provisioning number is one of the biggest disappointment to me, it seems. And on the business growth side also, if you look at compared to other banks, loan growth has been close to, I think, 12.5% around, which is okay, but not really very encouraging, I would say.
Yeah,
all the other banks have kind of gained some market share from NBFC, which it might not have happened with Axis Bank.
Yeah, that too. And I think somehow that seems to be a thing that has not happened with a lot of banks. Siddharth, very, very interesting points. Just hang on. Alok Shah of Monarch Net Worth also with us. Alok, quick thoughts, opening thoughts. Siddharth Purohit is disappointed with the numbers. What have you made of the numbers? What has stood out for you?
Yeah, I'm no different to what Siddharth has to say. This is nothing really to be cheerful of. There were a lot of expectations built up, especially after a strong set of numbers from ICICI. But there is no line item which excites me, be it the P&L, be it the margin performance, or the balance sheet side. So, slippages continue to remain, surprise negatively. And while we see GNPAs remain flat, decline QOQ, that's an outcome of higher write-off. While you have a 77% PCR, we need to watch what has happened in terms of provisioning for NPA. And in the line items that I read through here suggest that the double B and below book, kind of has more or less remained flat QOQ or just gone up on a sequential basis. So I won't really get too excited about the numbers.
Yeah, there was Siddharth, maybe it could have been aided by a few low bases as well, but I think the two or three things that everybody was watching out for, one, that the slippages number doesn't slip too much, and that recovery hasn't happened. Two, somehow the loan growth numbers that were anticipated and the provisioning number, has that also disappointed you?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that provisioning number going high and slippages going up. Definitely means that even the management would not be expecting much of recovery from those sort of accounts. That could be one of the way to look at it from that point of view. So while PCR looks good, but that it's a pure some amount of capital. So that certainly is not encouraging higher provisions. That's what I understand. So that could come as a disappointing, factor for investors. And remember that, Axis also had been trading at a premium to other banks. No doubt it has corrected a bit in last couple of weeks, but despite that, it's still trading at a premium to ICICI. And because of that, probably we might see more some amount of pressure coming in the stock in the coming days.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too. Remember, Axis has come off quite a bit, but despite that, is trading at a premium. Now, since Siddharth brought up ICICI Bank as well, Alok, just come in on that point. The dichotomy in the commentary, or the results performance, and maybe the commentary as we hear from Axis Bank, would be interesting if at all it is dichotomous in nature, because ICICI, while without giving specific targets, sounded a lot more confident about what the quarters ahead could do, and the numbers were a lot better than line by line than what Axis has thrown up. There are some chinks in the armor that some of the other banks have also shown. What has stood out for you as that one big negative? For Siddharth, it's the provisions and the slippages. For you, would that be the same, or has something else also stood out?
So I look at growth and margin. I completely agree on Siddharth's point of, specifically slippages. You're talking about 4,700 odd crores of slippages. When the entire build-up was closer to something like 3,000 odd crores. So certainly there is an element of negative surprise, and one will try and understand where this number has come from. But what really is an element of point to understand is the growth. The 12.7% loan growth that is coming through in this quarter. This bank has been talking about growing their SME and retail book for the last few quarters. How is the number looking on that front? I'll certainly look out for that.
Yeah, margins were likely to remain stable. QOQ 3.4, they've come in at 3.6. I don't think that really entices it too much. The provisions and slippages numbers that Siddharth Purohit spoke about stand out, and Alok as well, as he's mentioned, that line by line, there are a lot of things that don't quite work. Now, Siddharth has already mentioned that he believes that the stock could be under pressure despite the fact that it's come off. Alok, one quick thought from you. What do you expect the stock to do tomorrow morning?
Certainly, with the numbers that we've been looking through, unless there is anything major that comes out from the con call, I think the stock should open soft. What investors are more concerned, and as we understand when we speak with some of them, is an overhang with respect to any element of fundraise that's kind of got being discussed, in the corners for the last few days. So, any equity dilution further could see some element of pressure on the stock. So,
yeah, but that's a real and present danger, because almost everybody is now kind of knowing that this is a plan that is up on the anvil. Siddharth Purohit, the same question to you as well. I reckon that you already mentioned that the stock will start off lower. Is there substantial weakness that you anticipate in Axis, not just tomorrow? I'm not asking for a day's call, but over the next few days, in terms of whether people would now start preferring a Kotak and an ICICI Bank over an Axis currently?
See, I would not say substantial weakness, but there will be weakness. The reason being, first of all, the premium valuation that it was attracting. Second, there is an element of equity dilution that is likely to happen in Axis. But if you look at ICICI, then ICICI is very well capitalized at the current level. And they also have other assets to monetize and raise capital. So they may not have to dilute equity. So from that point of view, probably Axis is much better placed compared to, ICICI is much better placed compared to Axis. And because of that reason, I feel that, Axis could see some more selling pressure in the coming days, despite the fall that we have seen.
Seeming consensus out here. Siddharth as well as Alok, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us for that very quick perspective on Axis. Lots more to talk about, remember, with regards to Axis Bank numbers, but this is a basic number crunching that we've done. Thanks so much for tuning into Bloomberg Quint.